behalf of the ethics law. Anybody?
Who would like
Sure,
to
if you would
speak?
like to speak. Why don't you take the microphone? And then this way at least,
This one?
Yes.
This one working? I'm Alan Stout, Chairman of the Board of Ethics, and with me are most of the members of the Ethics Board. We've been working toward this goal for about 4 years now, and happy that we believe we have this law in final form. And I'll just say that we hope you will accept it and pass it, and I will be here available if you have any questions for me.
do you have people from the Ethics Committee that are here?
We have Therese Seibin, we have Mary Woodburn, and we have a prospective member. Kelly O'Donnell has applied, I believe, to be the town board, or the town employee representative. Phil Robbins was not able to attend. So that accounts for all 3 to 5 of us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. Well, we can't, we have another public hearing at 7:15, so we can either keep this open and see if anybody else shows up, or we could close this.
I'm trying to remember what were the changes, if anyone was interested. I actually used to remember.
I had just some suggestions for the law.
Okay.
Or do we want to
Okay.
wait for it to be as an agenda item? Sorry.
Since it's probably a public, I mean,
If it has to do with this, you can.
I guess,
So,
okay, go ahead.
so I did some research into it. I know that we had talked about having a separate law for political solicitation. I did find that noted within the Ulster County law, that they do include it within their ethics law. So I don't know if there's a reason why we don't want to include it. If we want to do a separate law, that's fine as well. But that I did find that there is a provision that we had discussed that is within the Ulster County ethics law.
Well, I think if, I just looked at it, it is political solicitation. It's just, right here, chapter 1515. We have political solicitation. I just think we were going a little further
No.
with,
Well, it depends on if you mean
can you use the microphone?
political solicitations in terms of someone coming in here or the employee soliciting.
So here
It
it's
has to do
no-
with, in this case, it's a county officer, so it would be town officer or employee.
Well,
Which is what we have here.
Right.
Okay, so that is,
So
all
it
right.
isn't here. What we were
That's
trying to do was what was happening where people from outside of town hall were coming in and
Okay,
abusing
so for
employees.
solicitation of the employees while they're
Right,
working. Okay,
Right, so
that's
they
a
were,
separate thing.
taking on employees while they were working. They were emailing employees at their work email address.
Okay, so I can understand that. That's a-
So we were trying to understand if we needed to go further from that perspective. I know that when they were being harassed, they had commented that that they couldn't, the people couldn't talk to them about politics because of the ethics law and whatever, so does this, Kevin, protect people,
no,
we
we
were
have
gonna
a,
talk about,
Right, we're gonna do
15.
Paragraph 15.
15.5?
Yes.
yeah, 1515.
15.15, okay.
It's political.
So this is all about municipal employees.
I think 1515 is not to abuse
Right.
your position as an employee.
Right.
Well,
And what we're wondering.
It's more about
Kevin, is that
conflict
stop
than
or, someone from the
solicitation.
outside coming in?
Which provision?
Well, 1515 says political solicitations,
sorry.
and
A, B, or C?
what we were talking about was both, all of it.
A, B, or C?
But
Yes.
Dan was bringing up that he thought we were going to do a separate law for political solicitations, and I said, no, it's actually in here. What we had brought up was the fact of people from the outside coming in and taking on our employees for political purposes, and how do we protect, so this sort of directs that our employees can't do certain things. We want to do
Right.
something to protect our employees also from the abuse that they might get.
Right,
I don't
that's
know.
going to be in a separate law.
I don't know how you can do that through this process.
No, we have a
I'm sorry,
separate,
Kevin. You gotta use the mic.
The only thing I will say is that I think and if I'm missing it, please someone tell me, I think this has to do more with disclosure of conflicts. I'm trying to find where it specifically says political solicitation.
Right here,
Susan,
15,
you're
15,
trying
political
to,
solicitation. See the heading?
I'm looking at the different one. That's my, okay, sorry.
Here.
are you trying to
Yeah.
cover the situation where we had people coming in from outside and badgering people here?
Right.
I don't think you can protect
I'm looking at the wrong one.
against that with this law.
Right, we
Thanks, Susan.
can, I brought it
Keep
to
it
the
active.
ethics board, and we discussed it, and even Joe agrees that it should be separate. It shouldn't be contained in the ethics section of the law, but that it warrants a separate code section, if you want
Which makes sense.
to, right.
And then I had just two other things
Sure.
as well. The other one I was looking at is I looked at the town of Woodstock's ethics law, and in it, it included, and this is a quote straight from it, all employees of the town of Woodstock shall be made aware of a whistleblower's provisions of New York State Labor Law 740 and Civil Service Law 75B. And I just thought it would be important to include that. Anyway, it's already a law, but just that this is something that we hand out to people and they see. So I think it would be important to note that as well, that there is a state whistleblowers law within that, or that protects our employees.
And that was in their ethics law?
That was in the town of Woodstock's ethics law.
It would seem that would be appropriate in their employee manual or a policy manual, but I don't see how that would tie into the ethics law.
You don't think it's just something that should be included
No,
within the law
It
itself?
would make sense to put it in the personnel manual,
Okay.
so
Because
that,
I looked at Wood, and I want to know Kevin's, in Woodstock also, because, interesting, if you're a whistleblower, you don't go to the ethics board to be the whistleblower. If you see it, you don't go to the ethics board, you actually go either to the town board, or if you believe there's someone on the town board that is doing something inappropriate, you then go up, I guess, to the county or state.
Okay, so they don't have an ethics board?
They do have an ethics board in
Okay.
Woodstock. They've actually had one, I think, since, I think theirs was started in theirs has been around quite a while. Late 90s, 2000, they started their ethics board. I remember looking at it, but I know the whistleblower provision
Do everything.
does not allow for them, that you don't go to the ethics board
Take it, Judge, take.
as a whistleblower. I forgot where you go. You go
Well,
somewhere
the idea of being a whistleblower is that you're protected from the
Right.
ramifications of reporting some form of inappropriate behavior.
I'm not sure where they go. Where do you go now if you're in the state and you
Well,
wanna-
it's just a law that would protect you if
From
someone
retaliation.
says something and then they get fired because they reported some form of misconduct. The idea would then be that, you know what, maybe I'm not going to report that because I
Because I may
fear
get
I would
fired.
lose my job. So it's state law, and my thought was just to include it within the law, just to make note of it, because it's already a law in the books. It's not something we have to do, it's just something I noticed that the town of Woodstock
Right.
had, and I didn't think it would hurt to include it. So, I mean, if there's any objections to that, that's all
Yeah,
right.
it's just a matter of where. Well,
I think
we
we
could-
should
we could
put it in our modified personnel policy, our personnel manual. Because it really,
The whistleblower
you want to
policy
protect,
it is part of the
Yeah.
employee handbook.
right.
Okay.
You're trying to protect employees who in good faith are bringing things to their superiors' attention. And so this ethics law really just deals with the conduct of public officials. You're getting more into a labor issue, even a union issue. There may be a mechanism within a collective bargaining agreement for reporting things like that. So I think it should stay in the personnel policy rather than, it doesn't seem like this particular law should include things that don't relate to conduct of public officials.
That's fine. It was just something I noted and thought it would be important to mention. And then lastly, I noticed too that the way one would report an ethics violation is, I believe the way it's phrased is you have to be a municipal officer or an elected official. And I was wondering if we wanted to change that to open that up to the public?
the way that that was done was really as a sort of filter in a way.
Yeah.
That you know, if you left it open completely, anybody could they could keep lodging ethics complaints against, you know, somebody doesn't like you.
Yeah.
So every other week they're lodging an ethics complaint. And so by forcing it to go through a municipal person or some employee or whatever, at least then it would be vetted to see if it's a legitimate complaint and then get forwarded. So if I remember correctly, when we were working on this the first time, it was done as a way to sort of give a little bit of protection also. I mean, you want an ethics law and you know, we have an ethics law to hold everybody to a higher standard, or to the standard that they should have anyway, but you also have to understand that things could be abused very seriously, and so it's also not fair to put elected officials in positions where people just have the ability to abuse them all they want. So I remember when this was being done my first time around, we spent a lot of time talking about that, about how to create a law that held the elected officials to higher standards, but simultaneously didn't also open them up to like total and complete abuse. And so I think that was what had been agreed as a way to sort of, you know, balance. And so, and has worked. I mean, it has worked. And so again, like when some ethics complaints have come in, usually a board member, if they get it, they're going to forward it anyway, because they don't want to be the one being the one held accountable for
Putting it under the rug.
Putting it under the table. And in a particular case recently, when some ethics violation came forward, some of the board members actually even sent it to the ethics board themselves, kind of stuff. So
My concern, though, is if you're an individual and you witness something or hear something or whatever, how then do you go about filing an ethics complaint? And I understand, you're right. I could totally see someone who says, I'm going to get so-and-so and I'm going to file a complaint every week. But then at the same time, my thought is, you know, it's the ethics board's job to review that and say, well, you know what, so-and-so is just out to get so-and-so, this has no merit to it, and you move on. But in the event that you do have someone who really does have a valid concern, I'm just curious how they then go about filing a complaint.
I thought I remembered that. Didn't we have a box that, wasn't there a lockbox that people could come put the ethics complaint in?
Well, there is a lockbox, but it still has to come from an employee or an officer. If it comes from someone outside of government, the law has stated we will not address it.
Right. Okay, well, since we do have another public hearing at 7:15, we can, I mean, we're going to have a conversation when we talk about adopting it, so we can continue this conversation later. The only question is, does everybody feel comfortable closing the public hearing?
I make a motion that we close the public hearing on a local law filing for ethics.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
No, I'm comfortable with it, but I don't know if Dan is, and so I
We're
want
just closing the public hearing.
Okay.
We're going to have a discussion, it's on the agenda for us to discuss the law.
Okay, but if we close the public hearing,
Then
if
we
we
can't.
make any modification, we're going to have a brand-new public hearing.
We would open a
Okay.
new public hearing
All
on
right.
any
So
modification.
then could we maybe, based on our discussion, choose to close or keep the public hearing open and not take
Well,
this?
could we keep the public hearing open, and then after our discussion, if we want to then close it, we could do it during the meeting? Okay, so for the actual proper motion right now would be,
Right now, we're on the floor to have a vote to close it, so if someone wants to rescind.
I will rescind my motion to close the public hearing on local law, I believe it was local law number 1, 2,
Two?
2?
I don't know, it's,
Electric car
well,
station.
it's not, because we haven't passed, we don't know, we could,
Ah, look at that.
2000.
2.
well, it won't be two, it might be 3 or 4, because we might
Proposed number
propose some.
Proposed number 2.
Right. Okay,
Rescind my motion.
I'll make a
Kevin, rescind your
motion
second.
to hold the
Kevin,
public
rescind your
hearing open until after our discussion.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing, can I have a motion to open the public hearing on
So
public
moved.
asset access management? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion so carried. Anybody like to speak towards the public access management plan? Kelly, you don't want to stay and wait for us to appoint you?
That could be later.
We'll be here for the conversation? You don't have to, go. Don't make me you feel guilty.
But I don't know
Come
when to do
to-
this
Alan,
early.
thank you.
What?
Take care, Alan.
They have meetings.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that right after, we can't do it until we
Right after.
close the public hearing and open the meeting. Yeah, the
It's in
officers,
my mailbox.
Okay,
Right
maybe
after
that's another
this.
one.
yeah, so we can't, Okay, so right now, would anybody like to speak on the access management plan? Anybody? Okay, if you could just grab the microphone.
Well, gal.
My name is Gail Gallery. I am chair of the
Can you hold it up, the microphone?
Transportation Implementation Committee, and thank you for doing that. I usually sit at home and say, hold it up so I can hear you.
Yes, you're always telling me that, too.
Yeah, I know I am sending you emails, but I am here as chair of the Transportation Implementation Committee that first began on the long path that leads us here tonight a little over 7 years ago, and it has been a long journey. I'm hoping that this evening is going to see it come to some closure, but in the course of that, I certainly want to repeat what I've said, I've had opportunity to say before, and that is that we are extraordinarily indebted to a number of people to gotten us to this point. And sitting right here, the Planning Board Attorney George Lithgow, starting about a year ago, really was enormously helpful. And I think that at the outset, maybe he wasn't fully enthusiastic about it, but certainly became very much engaged, very helpful to us. The truly countless hours that the town engineer spent developing proposals, working with us. Certainly, in this entire effort, we have been encouraged from the outset by the New York State Department of Transportation. We are also very grateful for the careful, thorough review that our own planning board devoted to this, and even strengthened what we believe strengthened what we had brought to them. And of course, to my many colleagues, I'm afraid Alan Stout may have already left. I would have acknowledged him. For 10 years, he was a member of our committee, and therefore, until last December, was part of this effort as well. But as I've said to you before, this has been important to us as a planning tool that will have any number, we believe, of benefits with regard to traffic, but actually most importantly for all of the users of our roads, be that the motorists, bicyclists, pedestrians. And so I'm hoping that tonight is going to prove to be an historic occasion, and I'm going to hope to see it actually get passed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail.
But this is a public hearing on the access management plan. So if you want to speak on that, otherwise, we'll do public hearing when we open the meeting.
No, I want to talk about that,
Okay, so if you could grab the microphone and,
because you have highways and byways in New Paltz.
well, if you could just first,
My name is Everett Payne. I live on the Bois Road. Oh, you say it different, I do. The access, it all depends on where we're having access up. Route 32, Route 208, the town of New Paltz's buildings, or a saloon in New Paltz. So if you're going to do something like this, please go back to the school board message and start with A, B, C, and D.
Yes, say yes.
no, I'm sorry, I was looking at something, so I didn't really hear what you said, so I was going to ask you to repeat it. So if you could just repeat, I'm sorry, Jim was showing me something and I didn't hear what you said.
Give them help. I said we should go back to our A, B, C, and D like we did in school. This doesn't work,
What?
okay?
What doesn't work, Everett?
Where's the word? The
No, that's
public
an access management plan.
It's an access
It's a-
management plan to give people more access.
It's an access management plan for traffic and to make sure that there's more connectivity.
Yeah, but you guys are not going to give them permission to stand here and BS for 15 minutes.
I'm sorry,
They
excuse
never
me?
have. In the 40 years I've been around New Paltz, okay? It doesn't work.
Oh,
You can't put it down on paper unless you're going to enforce it. You know, that's like drunk driving. If you're not going to enforce it, you can't do it.
okay. Okay, thanks. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak towards access management? Oh, okay.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, until we have a discussion, I'd also like a motion to keep the public hearing open till we have a conversation later?
I will move that, to leave the public hearing on access management open till we have the discussion on adopting the law later tonight.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion's carried. Okay, so we have 5 more minutes till we open the meeting, and we'll go from there. If you guys all want to come sit down, you don't have to stand up there.
You're welcome to come sit.
You
There's
can
plenty of
come, you can
chairs.
come and sit and stuff.
So we're just gonna take a couple-minute break.
We just have to
here.
wait for 5 minutes so we can open the meeting at
We're
7:30.
just waiting a couple of minutes to,
And
till
hope that the
7:30.
chief or the
I saw a uniform outside, so one is outside.
the chief or the
One
lieutenant.
is outside the door, and a blue uniform.
Yeah, no, they know, they were the one who told us to do this.
Okay, good, yeah.
So one of them better be here. What? Sure, sweetheart.
Statement that I shared with you and others on ENCP a couple of weeks ago. Feedback I got was generally positive. Norman said,
Do you want me?
Wish Alan was here, because you know the
Jean can do
state.
it. Jean can do
Jean, can you do it?
Yeah, the discussion started 4 years ago when New York State asked all municipalities to look at the model New York State law to make sure that they had everything in it. What we've done is we've incorporated the model New York State law and kept the pieces that are very important to New Paltz and what makes New Paltz. We've kept that in there, but we did do minor tweaks.
And then if you want to, too, is then you can send it to the clerk at this moment. You're doing have a copy.
How, whether or not the law would be made public, where it would be kept in the town clerk's office, who it would be referred to. These things were, they were generic in the
Right now, our meeting's scheduled for
existing law. If you look at the existing law
public hearing
compared
before, we've got just 5 minutes.
this is more specific.
Yeah, usually this does not happen, I would say. We're usually pretty good. But,
For you, it was before,
No, it's before we came in.
us.
I like your shirt there, sir.
The Ethics Commission was working with Jane Ann on this. Jane Ann Williams.
When I first came,
It's been that long.
when I first got elected back to town supervisor, I got 2 phone calls as soon as I got elected. One was from Gal Gallery to ask me about getting the access management moving because it had stagnated, and a call from Alan Stout about the ethics law, about how it was stagnated, and those were the 2 first phone calls that I had, was on access management and ethics. But they were,
No.
yes, when I
wasn't it
returned.
96?
No, we did the ethics law the first time in
Oh,
96.
yeah.
The first
Okay.
ethics law we did in 96. What I'm saying is when I got re-elected this time to come back this time, I got a call from Gail and a call from Alan. They were the first 2 people I met with.
you
Gail was
doing
talking to me
swearing
about
in?
getting the access management plan done, and Alan was talking about the ethics law because they were just like stagnating.
Hold on one second.
So
Are we doing swearing in of the officers?
I don't know
Or
if it's
just introduction?
It might be.
Diane doesn't know.
I don't think it's swearing in.
I don't know if they were coming tomorrow.
Okay.
Just go out. You go, girl.
I think they're all in suits and ties.
Do you know? Can you know how to do the swearing in?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty simple. They just
Okay.
need to give me their names and what job they're doing.
Okay, and then but they're supposed to
Put
be
their
people.
hand up and I cannot see them.
Okay, but
I'll be right back.
Oh, that's
There's
good.
4 of them.
yeah. Okay. Okay.
They're still,
I'm sorry,
crazy.
Bill.
they're not out there.
I'm sorry. I should have one. Well, Gail's been working on this for a really long time, but to provide better access, I mean, one of the
Really more specificity
for the
of
planning
all the things the planning board should consider
right.
in their site plan review of an application.
So one of the things,
And so it's more specific than the prior section dealing with similar considerations. So when you read this, you'll see that the public access plan includes several factors that are listed A through okay in the new law, proposed law. And there's more consideration for access for bikes, access through interconnected parking spaces so that there's more interconnectivity between your existing parking facilities and maybe new ones that you might generate. And all designed to, from a traffic perspective, improve, I think, traffic flow and to reduce traffic.
Yeah,
Do their names first and have this filled in.
right. Well, it's like, well, like one of the biggest mistakes that was made was when they were building First Columbia, when First Columbia was building the medical facility across the street from ShopRite. Okay, I don't know. I remember they were talking about getting the interconnectivity between the new medical facility and Ames Plaza, which used to be Ames Plaza. It's now ShopRite Plaza, but at the time it was Ames Plaza. So you could go from the medical facility right into the shopping plaza versus having to go out onto 299, make a right, then make a right into the plaza. And that was supposed to be one of the things that they were going to force the developer to do as a part of their site plan. I don't know why that ever ended up not being implemented or forced or whatever, but that's a lost opportunity. And so it's like that type of stuff to try to make sure that there's interconnectivity between, malls and buildings and keep less traffic off of, Main Street and then also simultaneously when a new project's coming in to try to minimize curb cuts.
What did you do? I know you are. I know.
So, here. I think this is notice of adoption.
Provision here, which is interesting.
Right.
Susan does not have an economy of words.
Yes, I do. Fuck you.
I know you love her, but
My husband doesn't think so.
Bill, you are trouble. You spell trouble for her. You get her all cooked up. She's going to be spewing. Kevin never spews. You know what he has? Yes. Yes.
He's a lawyer.
No. That's it. Mm-hmm. It's lawyer 101. That's what I call it. Lawyer 101. Hi, Ira.
What they're trying to do now is
Probably Monday, I think.
Oh my God.
Got changed. I didn't know about it until I had to go.
I don't know. You took.
What happened is 3 days ago,
Diane, you okay?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure Rosanna wanted us to specify, what other full-time, so I have to do that.
Okay.
And they just need,
I know.
yeah, this has been that kind of week where it's like, no, just don't, like, it's kind of,
Yeah, I know. Okay, we got to get started. Okay. No, yeah. Okay.
So agreeable.
Okay, so this is through. Okay.
Okay.
So let's. Do I have a motion to open the meeting?
I'll move that to open the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Can everybody please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, terrific. Welcome, everybody. Okay, because we have some guests here and we have some young children, I'm going to change things around a little bit real quick, but let's just first adopt the agenda. Then I'm going to ask if it's okay for everybody to just hold off on public comment, just so we could do the introduction and the swearing in of some of the police officers, because there are some young kids here. Then this way they can leave, and then we can open up public input, and then we can get into the agenda, if that's okay with everybody. Okay? Great, thanks. So I know that we need to add to the agenda the Ethics Commission appointment of Kelly O'Donnell.
Yes.
Okay, and is there anything else that anybody would like to
I
add?
don't have. Dan
Okay.
has something. You have something?
To add to the agenda?
Yeah.
No, you just acted like you...
No, I'm
Okay. Could I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Wait, time out before we
You have
vote.
the introductory resolution for the local law, residential rental buildings.
I thought we did a public hearing, set a public hearing for that.
Set the hearing, but I'm not sure if formally
Oh, the bill, the...
the resolution provides for you to introduce it.
I thought we...
You do have the hearing set for July.
I know, and I thought we forwarded it to the planning board and to the county planning board. And that's why we...
This is the same law, but I don't think we formally introduced it.
Okay, so do you want me to put that on?
Better twice.
Okay, so you want me to say introduction of rental law? Okay,
Okay.
so... All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Okay, what I would like to do is first stand for the pledge. We did the pledge, right?
did it.
Okay. I would like to,
Bring
I would like,
Lieutenant.
I would like to bring the lieutenant up, and lieutenant will decide how you want to handle bringing the officers up. So we're just going to hand it to you. And there's a
There's a
microphone.
microphone there.
And
First of all, thank you very much for letting us take care of this business early and tonight. We're here to introduce to you our 4 newest part-time police officer applicants. Kevin Gillis, Michael Rizzo, Cesar Mazriego, and Eric Bernhardsen. I'll have them come up in a second just to let you know all 4 have been vetted out through our background investigation process, which includes polygraph, psychs, and an extensive personal history statement. The chief and I are happy with these 4 candidates. We think they will be assets to the department. We're looking forward to having them field trained and out on the road, helping the community and the agency. 3 of the 4 applicants will actually be starting phase 2 of the police academy on July 10th. Once they complete that, they will begin their field training. Mr. Gillis, who's already certified as a police officer, will actually be beginning his field training next week. So I would just ask if the board would authorize the hiring of these 4 part-time police officer applicants and then allow us to swear them in. If you have any questions.
does anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay, so would somebody like
So,
to make a motion?
I'll make a motion authorizing the hiring of 4 new part-time police officers. The clerk, Diane, will have all their names at the contracted union rate.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion so carried. So now that you have all been hired, now we will go through the process of swearing you in. So,
Eric Bernhardsen.
Just repeat after me.
I, Eric Bernhardsen,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of part-time police officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
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 Cesar.
Hi. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. I, Cesar Mazriega,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
that,
part-time police officer.
that I will faithfully
I will faithfully discharge the
discharge of the duties sorry,
of part-time police officer
of a part-time police officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability. Thank you.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one. I butchered it last week.
Congratulations.
Michael Rizzo?
I, Michael Rizzo,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of part-time police officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Kevin?
I, Kevin Gillis,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of part-time police officer according to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all, and welcome to our community, and congratulations.
Congratulations all, and Rob, thank you for doing that.
Now, you guys don't have to stay if you don't want to. Rob, you don't have to feel that, nobody has to feel...
Hey, Rob, everyone would like to leave now, they're more than welcome to.
Congratulations to you and the family.
Unless they want to stay,
Thank
which can be
you.
understandable.
Thank you very much.
We should make them stay.
No, we'll just make them come to a police commission meeting.
Oh, yes.
We're the ones who care about that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thanks, Richard. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Look at how they're waiting for you, Rob.
Wait for Rob to leave first, there you go.
Rob, like a wedding. Like, the best men at a wedding, right? Okay. Thank you. That was great. Okay, so now we will do public input.
Yeah.
So if you want to come up and take the microphone, so this way the outside audience can listen to you and hear you.
Anybody receive me, or?
Yeah, the TV. People home are watching.
What station?
23.
23? Okay, thanks. Okay.
But again, you have to hold the microphone up. Holding it in your hand.
Yeah. All right. Good evening, Supervisor Simmet and members of the Town Board. My name is Joe Bergstein, and I reside at 114 Plains Road in New Paltz, and I'm a member of the Environmental Conservation Board. I'm here tonight representing the ENCB with a prepared statement concerning the use of antimicrobial soaps and sanitizers in public facilities and private residences in New Paltz. You're likely familiar with a number of cleaners and personal care products that are labeled as antibacterial or antimicrobial that are commercially sold at supermarkets and other retail outlets. These products contain certain chemical ingredients that are added to many consumer products in an effort to reduce or prevent bacterial contamination. The most common active ingredients in antibacterial soaps are triclosan and triclocarban. Triclosan first became widely used because it was considered safer than older antimicrobial ingredient hexachlorophene. That chemical was banned from household products in 1972 after Food and Drug Administration scientists discovered that toxic levels could be absorbed through the skin. Triclosan was initially used in hospitals in the 1970s as a scrub for surgeons preparing to perform an operation. It was also used to coat the surfaces of catheters, stitches, and other surgical instruments. Beginning in the 1990s, triclosan began making its way into hundreds of antibacterial consumer goods, ranging from soap to mouthwash, toothpaste, clothing, lunch boxes, and even toys. The growth has in part been fueled by Americans' belief that antibacterial ingredients provide an added level of protection against germs. Over the last several years, triclosan's safety has become a growing concern in two areas: environmental and public health. On the environmental side, triclosan is commonly detected in aquatic ecosystems, as it is only partially removed during the wastewater treatment process. The continuous exposure of aquatic organisms to triclosan, coupled with its bioaccumulation potential, have led to detectable levels of the antimicrobial in a number of aquatic species, and its byproducts may be more resistant to degradation than the parent compound. Laboratory studies have demonstrated that triclosan decreases levels of testosterone in male rats and altered levels of estrogen in female rats. Jumping from animal studies to human health impacts, triclosan has been detected in breast milk, urine, and plasma, with levels in the blood correlating with consumer use patterns of the antimicrobial. The endocrine study, a group of doctors and scientists who specialize in the hormone system, flagged triclosan 4 years ago as an ingredient that alters levels of thyroid hormones and reproductive hormones like testosterone and estrogen. The potential for endocrine disruption in antibiotic cross-resistance highlights the importance of the judicious use of this compound. Some experts argue that routine use of antimicrobial chemicals like triclosan is contributing to a surge in drug-resistant germs or superbugs that are immune to antibiotics. As strange as it sounds, many chemicals used in everyday household products have never been formally approved by U.S. health regulators. That's because many germ-killing chemicals were developed decades ago, before there were laws requiring scientific review of cleaning ingredients. The potential combined effects of such chemicals is largely unknown. In light of the laboratory findings, the FDA had issued a proposed rule back in December 16, 2013, that would require manufacturers to provide more substantial data to demonstrate the safety and effectiveness of antimicrobial soaps. The FDA has stated there is currently no evidence that they are any more effective at preventing illness than washing with plain soap and water. The proposed rule covers only those consumer antibacterial soaps and body washes that are used with water. It does not apply to hand sanitizers, hand wipes, or antimicrobial soaps that are used in healthcare settings such as hospitals. It may still take years to get final results concerning the evaluation of these products, and in the interim, the FDA has suggested that the public adhere to the precautionary principle concerning the use of these products. While the agency continues to collect additional information on antimicrobial hand soaps and body washes, they are encouraging consumers to make educated choices about the products they use. In line with the precautionary principle, some leading hospitals and companies have abandoned the use of products containing triclosan. Kaiser Permanente, for example, pulled triclosan from 37 hospitals across the country just a few years ago, switching to traditional soaps and alcohol-based hand sanitizers. Given the studies that have been conducted on triclosan that have demonstrated its potential environmental and health impacts, and the period remaining for the federal government to reach its findings on the safety and effectiveness of antimicrobial soaps, the ENCB suggests that the town take a conservative approach regarding the use of products containing antimicrobials. Specifically, we recommend that our public facilities, such as Town Hall, the library, our public schools, use of traditional soaps, soap products and hand sanitizers containing alcohol or ethanol to kill germs is preferable. This recommendation also applies to residential use of soap products within the community. Thanks very much for this opportunity to share this statement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Copy of that.
I have a copy.
Submit it for the minutes.
You have, how many copies do you have?
I have this copy for
Okay, so
that scratch out.
why don't, you can take this because I can make a
And
copy
Joe,
tomorrow.
If this is an ENCB statement?
Here.
This is an ENCB.
So can we put that, we'll put
We'll
that
put
on
on
the
the-
ENCB website also?
Yes, and
Yep.
I sent it also to Carol Connolly for distribution to the
Yeah.
board.
Yep.
So I have that copy for you, sir, and
No, we'll put it on.
No, I gave
we'll put it
him
on
my,
the,
I gave him my copy, and
We'll put it on the
so,
website, Joe.
Any questions? I just wanted to restate that this applies to public facilities, and also the recommendation is for the residential community.
Mm-hmm.
This
regulation that the FDA is looking into does not apply to healthcare facilities. So right now, they're making this distinction. So
Well, we can certainly look into what we use around Town Hall and make changes in Town Hall and the community center, the youth center. Of course, we can't influence the school district or any other, but we can do what we can on our behalf.
it's very, very clearly indicated on the list of ingredients that are contained in the cleaning elements. But it's really, it's a very widely spread chemical that's just beginning to be closely evaluated. It's been on the market since 1978, and there were questions back then about it, so it's been years, really.
And Joe, since you do this both in your real life and on ENCB,
Yeah, we don't talk about my real life, though.
that's true. Maybe you could assist us, and we could set up a time for you to look through what we use as cleaning products and assist us in greening up our products here.
I'd be happy.
Would you?
Great.
Yeah.
So
Great,
we
terrific.
will also then have Chris get hold of you, and maybe you can look through our inventory, because we keep all the data sheet, everything here has data
Master,
sheets.
yeah.
And we have the books here, so maybe you could help us with that, too.
But you won't hear from Chris for at least another week because he's on vacation starting tonight.
He's a well-deserved vacation. so,
I was wondering if something happened to him.
Yeah, no,
because
he's on vacation starting tonight.
It's
Well-deserved.
odd not to see him.
Yeah, so we will definitely,
He's actually still working, but he will be going on vacation.
Is this safe for cows, cities, that they have organic milk, or not?
I'm sorry.
Well-
Is it safe for cows, cities, that, where I produce organic milk?
Look at his age.
okay. Is there any, I'm sorry.
What was used decades ago for alcohol-based cleansers?
Yeah.
Out of curiosity.
Yes.
I would consider going back to those because really there's mounting evidence that this is material that just doesn't break down 100%. And in fact, the compounds that remain after wastewater treatment are challenging to deal with.
So this runs out of my barn into my pond, the cows are drinking, is recycling, right?
Recycling?
It's
It
running,
could be concentrating in there.
it's running from my barn down the lake, pond, and the cows are drinking it, they're recycling it.
Well, it's being incorporated possibly in their milk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're gonna wanna drink their milk, because then
Didn't hurt me yet.
it's gonna get you.
Okay. Thank you very much for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you, Joe.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak during public comment? Ira, can just grab, George, can you hand the microphone over to Ira? I think it's on.
I guess it's on. Thank you. Just want to relate a very hopefully positive and interesting experience that I had this afternoon when I went over to the senior citizens food, or whatever you call it. And the reason I say hopefully it's positive was I ran into Fred Van Osteren, and we were just chit-chatting because we haven't seen each other for I don't know how long. And for those of you who've been on the board for a while, Fred has always been pushing to have more than one senior meal a week. And he's always been blocked, and there was always a reason, and you couldn't use the hall or something like this or whatever. Well, when I was talking to Fred, apparently they're looking to put in a second senior food supply in. And I just thought that I think it's interesting of the timing, because Susan has put into place a senior citizen overseer, I don't know, coordinator, I don't know her exact title. Advocate. And I find that very interesting, and I find that a very positive move if she was the one who was forcing the, community center to do this. And I think that's very good. Hopefully the New Paltz Times will have that piece that she tried to put in that was promised to go in. And more people will be able to be aware of what your coordinator is doing. And I just wanted to thank Susan, people like myself or whatever, that That's positive, and it's
Well,
nice.
I do want to, thank you for saying it, but honestly, the credit goes to the county executive's office, who has been working with me to try to get a second lunch down here. And so they've been trying to coordinate it, work with it, and there was one day that they were trying to do, but it doesn't work for the community center, so we're trying to do a different day. But it's really out of the office of the county executive that's sort of behind getting a second lunch program down here.
I understand
So,
that the block was
yeah.
in the center.
Yes, well, there's,
And that
yes.
is now
Well, that,
gone.
well,
Whoever did, maybe it was coincidental, but the fact that you do have a senior coordinator who is pushing, who's trying to help seniors get by or whatever,
Yeah.
I just think you deserve the credit for that.
Well, thanks.
It's never been done.
well, we are trying to do what we can for the seniors, and we're trying to do more, and Kathy's been doing an amazing job. She's here a lot, and she's already meeting with so many different groups, trying to put together programming. She's going to start to, pretty soon, we're going to be getting the police officers, people from the state, people from all sorts of places coming and talking to seniors about, and creating programs. So we are trying the best that we can to meet the needs of the seniors in our community, which is growing every day. But thank you, Ira. And hopefully very soon we'll be able to announce the second lunch.
If you're thinking about new programs,
Yeah.
whatever, I would like to see if they can reinstate the diabetes program. First time that program ran, there were 33 diabetic seniors who came to it. And because it couldn't get on a regular basis, it dropped off. But for people, particularly seniors who usually wind up with type 2 diabetes, it was a fantastic program. And it's something...
Yeah, well, actually, Kathy's been, and I'll let you know when did you go to that meeting that she had with a whole bunch of people last week? Okay, we'll let you know when the next meeting is, because she's been pulling together resources from the community and planning what needs to be done and how to do it, free programming, plus we're going to offset costs for certain programming. So I'm sure she would love to hear about it. We could absolutely coordinate it.
That's why, because
Yeah.
up there,
Yeah.
this is something
Thank you.
positive.
Yeah, we're trying. Thanks. Anybody else who would like to speak during public comment? Okay, with that, then we'll get into the agenda. So the first thing, public announcements, right. Thanks, Jeff. The first public announcement I have is Town Hall will be closed to the public on Friday, July 25th, to allow the town departments continue working on their records management program. What we did is there's so many records that we need to file and have in their proper places and recorded, and it's never really been done. And what we had learned that there were a lot of towns throughout the state who close a couple of times a year to allow the employees to spend their entire day going through the records and putting records where they need to be, marking records where they need to be, getting rid of records they don't need. And so at our reorganizational meeting, we scheduled 4 dates, once a quarter, to have Records Management Day, where we're closed to the public, and the department heads just work on records management. It was an amazing feat the last time we did it. The town clerk's office, I can't even remember how many boxes they cleaned out of the back. So we will be closed on the 25th to allow the departments to continue working on records management. And fireworks, I guess,
July 5th?
July 5th. July 5th.
July 5th at the fairgrounds.
Right.
Will be the fireworks celebration. There will be music, fun, joy, and fireworks.
And please come.
Please come.
Okay, any other announcements? Anything else?
Sorry, what?
We never do it on the 4th because...
Actually, I wanted to ask about that because I posted it online and received like 10 comments about that. Why it wasn't on, not critical, they were just generally curious. Is there a reason why it's
Yeah,
not
because I think we don't compete with Kingston, which does July 4th, and they have a really big event, so we've always done it on Saturday, not to compete with other places, so we get people to come to ours.
Okay.
So it's always been the
That's what I thought it
Saturday after July 4th, and we started...
There's actually less licensed people doing fireworks, and getting someone on the 4th is very, very challenging and very expensive. So we've actually, unfortunately, moved them ahead.
But so it's July, the next day, it's July 4th is Friday, right?
It is Friday, yeah. It is
Okay, so
Friday.
ours is Saturday, 5 o'clock at the fairgrounds. Music, fireworks, food. Come join us. Any other announcements?
Tomorrow, we'd like to announce that the Moriello Pool will be open full-time, not just on weekends, and all the attractions will be open the diving board, which is one of Dan's favorites, the slide, which is one of Jean's favorites, the wading pool, which is one of Kevin's favorites.
Oh, you're going to say concessions.
That's
I'm
my
sorry, you're
favorite.
right. The concession stand, which is one of Susan's favorites. We will have everything open full-time
What's
tomorrow.
Jeff's favorite?
The lap.
What'd you leave out?
Doing laps in the pool. Going off the deep end. Going off.
There we go. I like that.
Councilman Logan's favorites are going
Councilman
off the
Logan's
deep
goes
end,
off.
actually.
That's very good, Bill.
Absolutely.
Can that be the headlines in tomorrow's Kingston Freeman? Councilman Logan goes off the deep end?
We have all as
Talking
much
about
open.
the pool.
Yeah. The kiddie pool or wading pool is now open, and I really do want to thank Chris Marks. I want to thank Chris Marks.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris, who is not present tonight, but he and I have spent many an early morning there, along with Bill Russell, putting in many hours at that pool to get it going. We've made many mechanical changes, and we appreciate everyone tolerating all of the changes, but it makes the pool a much safer and compliant pool. So they were needed, and that we are now having an open and pool, and let's just hope for good weather this weekend, which it looks like it will be.
That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, you done with announcements?
That's all I got.
Okay, so I was just going to say before, when we get to the ethics law and access management, I just want to state when I got elected 3 years ago, the first phone call I got was from Alan Stout to talk to me about access management. The second phone call I got was from Gail Gallery to talk to me about ethics management. And the second phone call was from, Gail called me about ethics, and Alan called about access management. I hadn't even been inaugurated. I had 2 meetings on those, and it's funny that they're both here tonight, so it's a long time coming. So on the ethics law, we have some actions to take, but since you want to do a discussion, what we had was Dan was asking for us to consider opening up the ability for anybody to just bring a ethics complaint directly to the ethics board. And like I said, I remember specifically this was looked at for a long time and discussed for a long time. Now, part of it, I think, Dan, in some ways was when we were doing this ethics law back in 1996, I think part of it was new, and there was a concern about how it could be used against people, and everybody was a little bit nervous because people like to play politics with elected officials, surprising. But, so we're really concerned. We've now had it for 15 years, and we have experience with it, so there might be less concern than there was when we first did it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally hear the concern, and I can see where it could be abused. But then I also believe that it's the role of our ethics board to then realize that that's happening when they evaluate the claim in question. Could someone do that? Yeah, it's very possible, but I also wouldn't want to stop someone who had a real concern from being able to file it because of it. And my other thought then too is, so let's say I'm a member of the public and I have an ethical inquiry and I come into town hall and I then state that inquiry, would it not then be the role of whatever officer I mentioned it to file the complaint anyway?
No, I believe the law says the complaint must be in writing.
But I'm saying that as officers of the town, if we're aware of an ethical issue, is it not our duty to then report that issue?
Well, it depends.
And I'll answer this because I've unfortunately been through it, which is yes. So I will use the example of an individual copied every board member on what they felt was an ethics complaint. So there were several of us then that just forwarded it to the ethics board. I made no judgment on it. I made no call on it. I simply took it and forwarded it to the ethics board. They then needed to weigh the merits of it one way or the other. So yes, it is beholden to the members of the town board to then decide whether this is something they are comfortable in forwarding.
Mm-hmm.
When we all received it, I just simply forwarded it. I didn't make a call on it. I didn't look at it. But you are right. So I don't know if Kevin has an opinion on it or if you have an opinion on it. Is there a better way to write it so it can go directly? But to Susan's point, what other communities have found and what the Attorney General's office also found, that if you leave it open to the public, you're going to have an ethics committee that is continually meeting because they're always getting ethics issues which really truly are not under the guise of what they were established for.
Well, the state has actually opened the system up a bit. I know that Jacob just did a thing where they opened up a hotline on their website.
Yeah, well, they had to. Do you know how many ethical violations there are from elected leaders in our state?
This is, and I hear this.
I think they actually had to hire full-time staff, didn't they?
They might have. But, oh my goodness.
You opened it. You stated it.
Well, no, I think there is an importance to it. And my other thing, too, is the ethics board allowed to start their own inquiry within the board itself?
No.
No.
Again, they need to get the ethics board, and again, Dan, just because I've been through this through another supervisor another time maybe we should have invited Joe Moriello tonight.
Well, I did invite him. He chose not to.
Through our town attorney also, is in communities and at the state level where they don't have, and I hate to use the term, and Kevin, please stop me if it's the incorrect term, which is if you don't have like a stopgap measure at some point to say who can file it, you end up with a lot of filings that we just simply cannot manage, and we cannot ask a volunteer board to do. But I do like your reasoning a lot, which is how do we make it very open to the public so they don't feel like it's being then, it has to go through this board.
Yeah, I mean, my
or public
concern
official.
is the insulation of it having to be someone within the town. Which is why I like the idea of opening to the public. And I completely see the potential issues with that. I just think that that's, in my opinion, the right thing to do, to be able to allow that access in the event that something is going on. And yes, it could contribute to more paperwork, but at the end of the day, we have the board to process that and to then evaluate whether this is a real claim or someone being a fool, if you will.
What paragraph are we talking about?
I think we must be talking about paragraph I.
I?
Paragraph I.
That's what I'm on. Under.
The Board of Ethics shall convene at least twice a year, and at such times, right?
Paragraph I, under section
It's like
15-8.
the third to last page.
15-8.
Shall convene at least twice a year?
The board.
Is it possible if you could give some copies?
I'm actually right here.
I
They're right there.
apologize. Right here, Everett.
They're right there.
I apologize.
The Board of Ethics shall convene at least twice a year, and at such times as may otherwise be necessary. The Board of Ethics may adopt rules and regulations relative to the conduct of business, but may only render advisory opinions subject to these limitations. 1, the request shall be in writing. 2, requests or inquiries must originate with a municipal officer or employee. Requests or inquiries must relate to the town's code of ethics. And 4, the opinion must be approved as to the legal sufficiency by the attorney for the town.
And so, Dan, where that came from, which is the Board of Ethics is a board established and set up by the town board. So it's not a board established for the public to then, so to speak, go to, unless it gets a directive from the town board. But I understand your concern too. So in the past, what we found is the answer, and this comes from, and now I'm using my memory, and I apologize, I didn't bring my file on it, which is the public should be able to copy every board member on that, and a member of the board should then be able to forward that if they feel it's justified, or if a member feels this is an issue for which the Board of Ethics should look at, will then forward it to them.
And I understand that, and I have complete faith that the board that's sitting here would do that. But my thought is, are you then creating an additional layer for someone to make an ethical inquiry?
Well, the term municipal officer would also refer to the town clerk.
Yes.
Is Stacy a municipal officer? Chris, if someone in the public had a concern, let's say someone in the public had a concern with a member of the board, whether it be this one or a different one, right? But they felt that by submitting it to the board, that someone on the board would conceal it, right? So, as another elected official, either Rosanna or Chris or whoever's elected highway or town clerk, they could accept that written concern, and they could forward it to Joe. First, they would forward it to the ethics board, and then the ethics board would contact the attorney for the validity of its legalities, and if it pertains to our ethics code.
15-1, purpose. Officers, employees, and consultants of the town. Why does a consultant have anything to do with it all? That's improper.
Well, a consultant is someone that is either paid or unpaid or employed in the town services, so that would be a consultant.
He's supposed to be making laws.
No. This is, no. This is not, this is
They're
not.
also included in.
They're included in
When
this law.
this law,
Have to abide by
when this law was first done, Everett,
It's not to.
there was also, I'm sorry, a big discussion about whether or not to include consultants into the ethics law. And at the time, the board at the time decided that they wanted, if somebody was working for the town and getting paid by the town, they wanted them to have to abide by the ethics law as much as any elected official. That was just a decision made by the board back then when we did this.
Law said the door does something, you're responsible.
No.
No, in his
not.
role as a consultant for the town, in his role.
Only as his role as consultant for the town. Same as a full disclosure statement for every consultant that works for the town within 30 days of signing that contract, whether it be an attorney, engineer, or consultant, also must sign a full disclosure statement with us. Same thing, and those are the responsibility of that. It needs to be turned in to the town clerk, and the clerk must file that then for review by the ethics board.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question and then a comment. I sub 1 says requests. What are they referring to?
Oh, sorry,
A claim.
which section?
15, what's the?
I1.
No, 15 what?
15,
Dash
go
what?
back one page, I'm.
15 did.
Subparagraph I.
No, you need to go to
15.
I think it's 15.8.
1518.
15. Where it says request shall be made in writing. you're referring
What's
to?
a request?
Oh, if somebody wants, if somebody wants an ethic, yeah.
That's what I assume.
They have
It's
to
an ethics-
submit the request or claim in writing.
Okay, so is the appropriate word requests? Kevin, your mic is not. It's not.
No, he just doesn't use it. It says the Board of
Well,
Ethics may adopt rules and regulations relative.
I think they use the word request because when you want the Ethics Commission to review something, you're requesting their review.
So I see-
You're
But it says-
requesting
So
an
request-
advisory opinion
That's what I want.
But you
on
have
a
to-
behavior.
Yeah, but you have to go back.
Requests for advisory opinions shall be in writing, right?
But no, but go
Well, no, it's-
go ahead of time, where it says, the Board of Ethics may adopt rules and regulations relative to the conduct of its business, but may only render advisory opinions subject to these limitations, that the request shall be in writing.
Requests for an advisory
Well,
opinion.
actually, go to 4, though, of that same,
Yeah.
and now, does that speak to it also? And I'm asking for your opinion, I don't have the answer to that.
It would seem that, the request is for an advisory opinion based upon a submission or a complaint that was made, right?
This I think during our discussions had to do with if there was a consequence. If there's a consequence, you need to find out from the attorney if it's enforceable.
Well,
Yeah, I just want to be consistent with the language.
But it makes, when it says may only render an advisory opinion subject to these limitations, well, you're not going to ask the Ethics Board to render an opinion that was verbal, because
Right.
how can then you go back and,
I have that, so let's go to 2.
okay.
Why are you now talking about inquiries?
Well, wait, I apologize. Can we go back, and this is not to disagree with you, Kevin. So 1, how would you change 1?
No, he
so I
said-
can write it down.
He said
So
he
you
had
change
one.
it.
I would say requests for advisory opinions shall be in writing.
Request, so you would insert
For advisory opinions.
Why wouldn't you just make it requests or inquiries shall be in writing?
Well, what's an inquiry?
Yeah, it's just-
No.
Well, because, you know what, it's not an inquiry they're looking at, though, Gene, and
But Kevin, go
thank
back to
God,
the,
thank God Kevin speaks lawyer. 'Cause
Kevin,
I
go back to the,
certainly don't.
Kevin, go to the
But
sentence beforehand,
He's
though.
asking for
Because it says,
advisory opinions.
but may only render advisory opinions subject to these limitations. So would you say request,
Just to be consistent,
okay?
and to make it clear,
Okay, what would you like it to say?
requests for advisory opinions shall be in writing. And then I think there should be, you should say somehow, and the allegations of the complaint attached to the request, or something like that.
Would that be a subparagraph like 5, or?
Maybe that's part of 1, where you actually ask them, when they're rendering their request for an advisory opinion, and that's in writing, to include.
Well, that's number
the-
4 is, I apologize, Kevin. Number 4 says the opinions.
No, that's the opinion they render when they're done.
So
But if they-
would you put your, I understand what you're saying, so would that go as part of 4, though, or would that be?
I would say
Or would
that
4 become
the
5?
request should include the original complaint that's submitted, or.
But that is what they're saying, is that you're asking them to give an advisory opinion, and they have to put their complaint
Don't you
in
wanna-
writing.
Listen to me. Don't you want to give them exactly what was received?
Yes, but that's,
There's no mechanism for that here.
oh, because you think it's saying that if I get the complaint,
You could send a request for an advisory opinion in writing, but you should attach.
look, I just assumed that.
In other words,
I know what you're saying.
You cannot
Now-
now
I
go
know.
back
I
to
think
the
he
board.
wants
I
to
know, 'cause I
clarify
understand it
exactly
now.
what you're thinking.
Like in other
Yes.
words, when there was.
You can't go back and ask for the actual.
No,
What
no.
you interpret the request to be, Kevin's
When-
saying, is
when-
that
when we got
that
it-
request is what you must forward.
Which is what I thought
not-
it was.
It's, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So-
Kevin is speaking legalese.
Okay.
Thank you for also assisting me on that, but yes, he is, but he makes
But you see, I heard
You
Susan's.
translate better than I do, but he has a very valid point, which is the advisory opinion is on the request, not on my opinion of the request.
No,
I'm
it's-
not forwarding an opinion of the request.
Okay,
it's the
Kevin, just-
actual
just-
request.
Here's an example.
How about must be forwarded by?
Here's an example.
I'm pretty,
No, complaint
let's just
comes
take
in.
the complaint comes in writing, and it
Complaint
goes
comes
directly to
in.
the ethics board.
Complaint comes in to a municipal officer. The municipal officer takes it, prepares a written request to the Ethics Committee for an advisory opinion. I, Kevin Barry, am hereby forwarding this complaint to you, and I'm requesting a formal advisory opinion based on section so-and-so of our ethics law. That has to include the original document that came in to the town. So
Right.
one should include that notion.
I would agree, because it's not always going to be us on the board.
I agree.
So I agree
And
with your language.
the ethics board should see the original document as well.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't think they've ever gotten a,
A false one.
no, I just think that anytime there's been something forwarded to the ethics board, what was forwarded was what came in
Okay,
writing.
so we should specify that. Number 2, get rid of inquiries. We don't need the word.
Did
Request
you
must
specify?
originate.
Because I didn't write it down.
No, he's taking it out. Okay, let's keep
Request
moving.
for
Come on.
advisory opinion shall be in writing and shall include or shall have attached the original complaint.
So request,
And shall include.
Well, if we're going to go, I mean,
Or
usually,
Shall have
addendum?
attached or include, either way you want it.
not to make things more complicated, but usually when an ethics thing comes in, it just gets forwarded, but what I'm saying is if you want to do this, Kevin, maybe what we should do is make a form.
See, because the request has to be made by
No, I
a
understand that.
municipal officer and employee.
I know that, although we haven't gotten to the point of
that's the
agreeing or disagreeing
request.
about it.
That's the
But-
request.
But I'm just saying, do you want to have a
you did.
form?
You could.
I mean, we should do a form that just sort of says, any municipal officer can take this form, fill it out, attach the request, forward it.
Yeah.
It's always better to just,
So that's the request form. You
Right.
can put request form on
Right,
top.
exactly.
Just make sure you
and you'll
attach the
make,
complaint.
and you'll write it up. Okay.
So inquiries is gone.
Okay.
Take inquiries out of
Okay.
sub 2. You don't need it because,
Okay, we're doing a request form.
okay, 3 is fine, and 4 is fine.
Then do you want to leave in inquiries on 3? Or do you
No,
wanna
he took
take
it
that
out.
Take it out.
Took it out.
He took
So
it
it's
out.
on 3. No, we're on
There's no
sub 3.
inquiries.
So requests must relate, get rid of it, or inquiries.
Great, to the town code of ethics. And going back to your original point, Dan, about expansive or contractive, it's worked so far the way it is, the way it's been. So I think until we actually have a problem presented to us where the mechanism's not working effectively, we should leave it the way it is.
Include.
I mean, I hear that, but if we see where a problem could potentially lie, would we still want to then ignore it?
We'll never ignore.
No, and that was bad, poor phrasing, but I'm saying more in regards to a law itself. If you can see where there could be a gap within it that could be fixed.
I think we as a board are very responsive and responsible, and to the extent that anything comes before us where we think there's a gap in one of our laws, we can fill the gap. But I don't see a gap right now. The mechanism has worked so far.
From the perspective of Dan, I understand, though, every board changes, and it's like Bill Kimball was saying earlier, ethics law are only, that's what happens when you talk to us first, but ethics laws are only as good as the board imposing them.
Put that in the
And so, right.
Or following them.
So, I mean, what we could do is maybe a possibility is just, I'll throw it out, is that we just say ethics, an ethics complaint comes in writing and gets served to the town clerk, and the town clerk will forward it to the ethics board. And,
Well, it doesn't necessarily need to go to the town clerk, because the ethics complaint could involve the town clerk's office. So municipal officer is what you want to keep.
So then, do
So
we
that could
want to
be
change it
anybody.
to that if a municipal officer is aware of an ethical inquiry, if
They
you
would
will,
receive a request.
if they receive the request, that it is their role to forward the request to the ethics committee?
Fine.
So that way you still allow for it to be the public to submit it that way as well. Is there an issue with that phrasing?
Well, there's not an issue with the phrasing. The phrasing is perfect.
Sure.
It's how
The content of it?
how it's put into, how it's implemented.
Sure.
So as I said before, I think we should leave it alone. But in the future, we may decide to change it and see whether or not, from an administrative perspective, it overwhelms the ethics board or not. We'll see.
I gather, and Dan, I'm not meaning to put words in your mouth, but is your concern that somebody can come in with an ethics complaint, somebody looks at it, and because everybody wants to protect somebody, it never makes its way to the ethics board because everybody's locking down and protecting somebody?
Yes, and again, I'm not saying that that is a reaction to a climate that I currently see, but rather putting something in place to prevent something from happening in the future. I mean, I think that we could, because I'm not sure everyone lies on this, so if people are all right with it, this issue is regarding to 15.8, Part I, Section 2. So how about I make a motion to strike that, and if people are...
Where are you?
I.
Right here?
Two.
So
Section
you
I.
want to say,
Okay.
then who would
okay.
originate it to the ethics board then?
No,
That they would
say
then-
what you were going to say.
that it would no longer, the phrasing where it says, originate with a municipal officer or employee. So then the complaints could be just submitted straight to the ethics board.
Well, then what you're doing is you're saying that the public can basically direct the ethics board to do their job, and that may be not what we want to do.
But
So if you understand from
No,
an
it's
administrative point of view.
No, and I understand that that would be the result of striking that section as well.
And we were advised in the past to not do that by legal counsel, that this is not, it is, the electorate needs to have faith in those that they have elected that they can go to the full body or any one of the body or any of the employees within the town, that they will then forward these to the body that they have put in place. So don't forget, we also do put in the ethics board. They're actually a board. So when we forward it to the board, we're forwarding just this item. Whether
The
it have
mechanism
merit or not.
is pretty expansive.
It's very expensive because anyone can. You can go to
any employee.
Any employee. They could actually go to someone who is out working in front of their home on their street, and that is a municipal employee. And that person could then take that complaint and
So that's 100
forward it.
people, right?
Wait,
Is that 100 people?
We're not only talking.
But only if they chose to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
I absolutely agree with you on that, but you got to also keep in mind that this is a board that we have put in place, this board, as an elected body. So we are, yes, we are asking that they do have faith within the electorate.
You're saying you're governing.
Your governing body.
But actually, there was, I think we had a conversation about this at one point, because I thought I remembered talking about this and maybe making a suggestion. Dan's concern is legitimate in the sense that, by having a municipal officer have to take the ethics complaint and bring it to the ethics board, that somehow, some way, at some point in time, it might not get brought forward because for whatever reason. And so I thought at one time we talked about the possibility of having the things being forwarded to the attorney. In other words, like that it goes directly to the attorney. The attorney determines whether or not this has merit, and if the attorney thinks it has merit, it gets forwarded to the ethics board as a way. I think we talked about that. Remember? So we had a conversation about this at one point.
Right.
And it was deemed that, for many reasons, it was also deemed that you were now putting an attorney in a place of almost deciding whether, because we also then dictate who our town attorney is. So your then town board could go through
Influence, the influence factor.
Like a municipality that's very close to New Paltz, which seems to go through attorneys very quickly on their board. You could then keep changing your attorney. And
If you didn't like
your
their
attorney,
answer.
your
What I'm
attorney is
saying, Dan, is
embodied to
this.
the board. So.
I understand your point 100%, but up to this point in time, I don't see in a practical way how the public hasn't had access through this conduit to the ethics board to vet a complaint. So I know that it's possible that in the future it might be a little different, but I think we have to keep some kind of a filter, and when I say filter, from a government standpoint between the public and the board that we appoint. So really, we're directing them to perform a function pursuant to this law, and so they're taking their direction from us and the law. So I think it would be premature to open it up in a different way until we have some tangible evidence that it's not working properly.
And I understand, but again, I would also argue that, and I'm not saying it has happened, based on that scenario, would you know if that scenario even happened? I mean, the idea here is that the potential for someone to make that claim and it not go anywhere, well, if you made sure it didn't go anywhere, you were unaware that this scenario happened.
So it's a hypothetical you just raised, and you're right, it's a possibility. But what I'm saying is, in practice, we haven't had that happen yet.
I suspect that the person who brings an ethics charge forward, if they don't see it being handled in a professional manner, they'll go right to the paper.
Exactly.
So it's not this. You can't hide it. I mean.
And I think we need to get input from our ethics board as well. Do they want to be fielding?
Well, actually, we did have
complaints from the public.
And I apologize, Kevin. I mean, just because this goes back to a previous supervisor. That's how long we've been working on updating this law. And the ethics board was not interested in open documents constantly coming into them. They do not meet frequently, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they also believe that the part of the community faith in those they elect, that they have the same faith in us, that if we get forwarded a complaint, we will then take that complaint and just forward it to the ethics board without making any judgment on it, whether it has merit or not. And then we opened it up also that the limitations are to any municipal officer or employee. So if you take any municipal officer or employee, you're looking at well over 100 people. And so it's anyone that is employed by the town then has the right to forward it to them. Because they then also have a responsibility, they felt, to respond back to someone. They don't have a responsibility to respond back to a resident of the town. They have a responsibility as a board to the town board to then respond back to either the town board to confer with its attorney or to the employee that made the complaint.
I think, let me just add one more thing that might make you feel better. We made it a part of the ethics committee. There had to be a town employee on the ethics committee. So we have a town employee, of which hopefully we'll be appointing tonight. So if you have a town employee who's on the ethics committee and somebody comes and gives it to them, they're going to take it to the ethics committee because they're a member of the ethics committee. They're not going to hide it. So I think that was part of the reason why we wanted an employee on the committee itself, was to have access to an employee and take it out of the hands of the elected officials.
And just so you know how seriously ethics committee takes this is that the town employee that was the town liaison to it has literally actually they have not missed a meeting, but that employee is no longer with the town, and now they have asked that we now put someone in right away. So there even hasn't been a missed meeting. So they are very serious about ensuring that there is a town employee. And the reason we came upon that was that the ethics complaint could very easily come from within the town. Someone who sees the day-to-day operations of the town and says, okay, I see an ethics issue with another town employee, and yet I need someone to go to. So it's another mechanism for also, to your point of the whistleblower. They now have someone within the town they can go to that will then carry that directly to the ethics board and also are a member of that ethics board. But I do see what you're saying, though, Dan. I absolutely agree. Do you think that we're looking too much at ourselves as being responsible, that we will carry it forward, or... And when I say we, I don't mean this board is sitting now, but future boards even.
Well, and then you have the irresponsible argument. So you have the responsible argument and then the irresponsible argument. And believe me, I can make that irresponsible argument based upon my experience in New Paltz.
Sure. I mean, and I look at it too as where, is there the chance that someone's going to say, I want to get someone sitting at this table because I don't like them?
Oh, yes.
Do that? Yeah, it totally could happen. But I would argue too that if you had something that you wanted to do that to someone, you'd also write the letter to the editor anyway. So I feel that there are legitimate complaints that also could not get filtered out.
And also, Dan, there are complaints that are forwarded to the ethics board that they have looked at and even conferred with attorneys and said there will be no action on this.
Sure.
And so it does go both ways.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
And in my tenure sitting on this board, I'm yet to get and they have met multiple times. I have sat in on meetings of theirs, and then they then excuse me because as a town board member, and then they meet, and we have thankfully never had to take any actions. But we are looking for the greatest safeguards here. So I do like what Kevin has proposed as some of the safeguards also to make the language a little bit more open. But Dan, do you have another idea besides the taking out the part that it has the I subparagraph 2?
We could require municipal officers to forward ethics complaints to the ethics board if they receive them or are made aware of them.
And I actually do agree with that, and I'll just agree with that because I have done that just because it was given to me. Whether I didn't make any judgment on it, I just said this was given to me by one of our constituents, I will then forward it. But we have two attorneys here, but I will confer to Kevin. Do you have a way to phrase that?
I don't have a problem with it.
So you want to just say that,
How do you phrase that, though, and is that part of two?
You're just going to direct your municipal officers or employees to forward the complaint to the ethics board.
so request
So would
must
it be
originate
number
with,
five,
so
or would it
request,
be-
or it could be, request must originate with municipal officer or employee, and they are direct, and they are,
I don't know if you direct them through this, or you direct them through some other mechanism.
well, if we could do it through this.
Well,
just
What
put it
about-
through the law.
makes sense to do it through
Who
this.
is required to furnish it to the
Or
Board of
is it
Ethics?
a municipal employee or, excuse me, is a municipal officer or employee upon receipt of request?
So you want to just
Must
say.
See, I think it's
request must originate
implied.
with a municipal officer or employee who, upon receipt, will forward, upon receipt of the request, will forward? Want to use
Sure.
that language?
Sure.
Yep. And I mean, and I'll say it again, just for the record, it's not something that I think is an issue now or with anyone here. It's just something that I thought was.
And I'll
Well, if it's an issue with anybody, it's got to.
I know how you feel about me, Dan.
Well, Dad, if it's anybody, it would be you, because the four of us have experienced it, and we've already forwarded the.
You know what, now I'm going to get dozens of ethics complaints against
So,
me.
We've
yeah,
already-
okay with you, so upon receipt, we'll forward to,
Upon receipt, the
Of the
request will be
request.
forwarded to the ethics
on
board.
receipt of request, we'll forward to
It'll be forwarded to the ethics board.
ethics board.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Dan.
Anything else? Do you want to say anything, George, even though you're not? Anything else?
George, stay out
Enough's
of
been
this.
said, enough
Okay.
said.
Okay, so is everybody okay with the changes we've made? Okay, so is the
But
board,
does that change it materially or not? No.
I don't think it
the
changes it
language?
materially enough to have a public hearing.
I-
Does that change it materially enough?
Well, the
to
thing
have a
is,
public hearing?
because we left it open.
Well, we left it open.
That's
It's
why.
still open,
Right.
does that require,
That does not seem to require renotice.
No.
that is not a
No,
material?
it's just a matter of, do we keep the public hearing open so people have an opportunity to comment on whatever we decided tonight, or can we close it and act?
Well, you can close the public hearing, you could allow written comment, you can consider that
do
making
that.
your determination. If you're not going to determine it tonight.
Well, I'm just saying, we could determine it tonight. We're asking
I
if we
think
can.
we need to not determine it tonight, only because I agree with George. We should close the public hearing, leave it open for written comments for a certain period of time, and then also send our changes back to the ethics board for their sign-off on before we pass anything.
Right, because it is the ethics law.
Right.
Okay, so who would like to make the motion?
Dan,
Wait.
I'll say.
I'd like to
Well, I'd
make,
like to make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Do I have a, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Subject
Motions are
to-
carried.
I
subject
apologize,
to
subject to,
accepting written comments submitted by the public within the next, how many days?
14?
14 days.
14 days.
No, I would say,
So it'll allow it to be in the paper.
Okay.
Paper will come out.
Okay.
You'll have time to respond.
okay. And then we'll put it on the agenda for July to hopefully pass.
What meeting will that be in July?
Okay, all in favor? We're going to do it at the Huguenot Street meeting.
All in favor of what?
All in favor for your motion?
My motion.
What motion?
The motion that Jeff made and that you,
We already
I
closed
thought we
the
did
public
that.
No, we made a motion.
Aye.
Aye.
everybody in
We're
favor?
accepting
Aye?
Public comments for 14
Yes.
days.
Okay, motion so carried.
Thanks, Sue.
You're welcome.
Do we want to say the pledge again?
Sure.
Now,
Okay.
would we also like to set a date to renotice this?
No, we don't have to renotice it. We closed the
I
public hearing.
apologize. No.
We closed it. We're all tired. Okay, so before we move on to access management, can I have a motion to appoint Kelly O'Donnell
So moved.
as our new employee on behalf of the, serving, the new employee serving on the Ethics Committee as per.
As I said that, I so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion so carried. Congratulations, Kelly. Thank you for agreeing to take this. We really do appreciate it.
Kelly, you don't have enough late nights.
I know, I can't
Town
believe-
hall. Thank you very much.
No, but,
Yeah. Thank you,
you're,
Kelly.
you're a great addition. Thank you so much. Okay, so that's that. Okay, now access management. We were asked, I mean, unless you want to ask questions about access management.
Gail, do you have any questions that you wanted to?
No, you want to ask questions, Kevin? Okay,
Gail,
Gail, why don't you?
Gail, could you just join us real quick for access management? We just have some quick questions, and thank you for staying. We appreciate it.
She's been waiting a long time.
Thank you.
Gail, could you just briefly describe what in the amendment was critical in your mind for moving forward with the planning process in the future? That may be redundant. I'm looking at the new law, but what was the what were the basic principles behind the amendment?
The basic principles behind the amendment had to do with, was all part of the multifaceted approach to traffic management and land use. And that by more rationally planning for access to major roads, having to do with things like, where driveways are placed, whether driveways may be shared, whether there potentially could be connectivity in certain areas, would have multiple impacts that could both deal with issues of traffic flow itself, but also, as I've indicated before, equally important, the safety of all of the users of our roads. So, of course, the transportation and land use study was driven by a concern about traffic, and this, however, was part of the our recognition of the multifaceted approach, something that the New York State Department of Transportation actually has been encouraging communities across the state to do, and in fact we've been told by the now Region 8 director, Tom Weiner, who's worked with us for a long time, that he's begun holding out New Paltz as an example of how communities can use tools like this for managing the number of cars that are on the road, how they get there, and so forth.
So,
I hope that's been at least partially helpful.
So what you're saying is, with respect to future development plans, those plans will be subject to a different set of rules than plans submitted in the past?
Yes.
Okay.
In the sense that the people with plans, either people developing something new or undergoing some major change in their purpose, would now be required to look at some of these issues where they hadn't been before.
Okay, so really the issues that are new in the new law, in your public health and safety, comfort and convenience, that was in the prior law, right? Comfort and convenience of the public, George? So really what it is it more dealing with the interconnectivity and traffic circulation issues that are raised by new development? Is that basically what you're trying to deal with?
That is clearly my understanding, yes, and that we avoid some of the mistakes we've made in the past by addressing them during the planning process, getting developers to look at possibilities such as connectivity, shared driveways.
So shared driveways in a lot of communities have been outlawed for some reason, and I think there's probably good reason to have them in some cases. So this law would give you a little bit more flexibility in trying to create situations on a case-by-case basis that make sense. But it seems like this law, to some extent, is going to place a burden on new applicants that maybe they can't necessarily satisfy. And when I say that, any new applicant coming in is going to be dealing with an existing traffic scheme, an existing non-connective plan. So what you have is, you have maybe the non-connectivity bucket full here, and you're going to ask for all these new applicants to try to solve some of that problem over time. Is that correct?
Over time,
Okay.
and insofar, within their own scope of responsibility.
Right. So obviously the planning board has to keep that in mind. They can't solve all their problems overnight. I have one question for you and for George about this subsection down here. So this law is really talking about what the planning board should consider.
Yes.
And then there's a reference down here to town board action. So George, maybe I can ask you about that. Where you're down here in B. in B, it has 1, 2, 3 subparagraphs, right?
The zoning incentives,
Yeah.
Yes.
So, in appropriate circumstances, the applicant may propose zoning incentives to the town board, demonstrating that such incentives are necessary to enable the applicant or property owner to provide internal road systems, shared driveways, cross-access driveways, access and public roads, internal circulation systems, interconnecting parking, or off-site traffic improvements that will maintain or improve the safe and efficient movement of traffic along state and county roads. It's a run-on sentence. And within a proposed development site or proposed subdivision abutting those roads. So tell me exactly what the incentives, give me an example of incentives that would be proposed.
one example that has actually been talked about is the possibility of an off-ramp or an exit from the thruway directly to a property. They provide enhanced service.
Mike, it's right at the end of the code book.
One example might be a project comes and has the possibility to provide direct access from the thruway to the property for the purpose of facilitating a regional traffic flow to that property. The developer of that property can come and discuss with you whether or not that may be something that the town requires in order to promote the objectives of the zoning code. And if so, he can enter into a discussion with the thruway authority to provide such a improvement and potentially receive some benefit in exchange for that. It's essentially a way of shifting some of the financing obligation from the DOT or the county to the private developer.
So what's the term zoning incentive mean?
It basically is using a land development tool to recoup some of the expenditure for the transportation infrastructure. So,
But I'm confused by the term applicant may propose zoning incentives.
an applicant can come to, as a lesser example, an applicant can come in and say, I can only develop a two-story building here. I could build a highway improvement which would facilitate the overall flow of traffic, have a benefit to the town, and in exchange for that, if I could have a third story, I would do it. And that is something you can consider whether or not it's in the town's interest to do that. If it isn't, you say, no, thank you, proceed with 2 stories.
Okay, so then the town board receives that request, and then they refer it to the planning board for consideration, right?
Yes.
And then if the town board wants to pass a zoning amendment, we could?
You can implement the incentive, however, whatever step would be necessary.
What steps would we take to implement?
Typically, it probably would be a zoning amendment. It may be, yes, it would be a zoning amendment in that case.
All right.
And if you do have a problem that you want to solve and you want to encourage property owners to participate, you could almost, you could set up that incentive in the zoning code and invite them to do that.
Okay.
So you need a traffic improvement.
So let's fast forward now, just quickly, okay? Wish list.
Talk into the microphone, please.
What, wish list wise, what should we be doing here in New Paltz? So we have this law, so now let's implement it just here for 15, 20 minutes. What would the results be? How can we take this, implement it, and see dramatic results in terms of property access and access management? How do we take this and forward it to meet the goals designed by the amendment?
Well, my assumption is that from the minute that you pass it, that, you know, with the proposals that come to the planning board, that they will, you know, immediately begin, you know, enforcing some of these things, requiring developers to look at some options with regard to, you know, with regard to these features. Frankly, my sense is, you have a better understanding, George, my sense is that because of all of the discussions that some of these issues have even entered into, some of the discussions with, you know, with developers as well.
So my point, though, is shouldn't we have a general notion or a plan for the way we would like things to look or flow before we kind of start asking developers for their help with their projects?
Some of it you don't know until the project comes in, so you don't know the impact of...
But obviously, there's access. We talked about the bucket being full with issues that we have with traffic flow and circulation and things like that. And so you want to more properly plan going forward to eliminate the congestion or whatever you're talking about. But have we thought about, from a broader planning perspective, what we need to do to eliminate some of these issues?
I think in the 2008, the traffic study that was done along the 299 corridor, that had a list of proposed steps, measures, issues that could be addressed. And
in fact, I think, Kevin, if you went and looked at the final report from the New Paltz Transportation and Use Study, you'd see a series of areas throughout the community. And the, you know, Route 299 corridor is one, so is the work that the village is doing on the B3 zoning. It speaks very directly to some of the priorities, but I think there were maybe 5 different zones within the community that we identified. And I'm sorry I didn't bring that with me.
Is like South Putt also... I believe South Putt was also on that. But I think to Kevin's point, though, too, should we be, is this master, and I'll ask George, is this master plan activity that we're now kind of dipping our toes into?
this would be something that should and could be incorporated in a master plan. What and if you get around to doing a new one.
Let's not go any further in those waters. I said toes, I didn't say up to our ankles or knees.
And it's been a while, but
yes,
it would probably be, at least I've even found it so worthwhile to go back and look at the study, look at the areas that have been, you know, been identified, some of the ideas that, you know, have been created. But to go back to Susan's point, of course, a lot of it is, you know, has to be simply in response to what individual developers are choosing to do.
Right. So now what we're looking at, things like, but South Putt is a good corridor. Now Susan was able to get some more interest into Henry W. Du Bois. So I know those were spoken to quite a while ago, and now we're kind of catching up to those. But to Kevin's point is, does an applicant necessarily... Are we putting an applicant at a disadvantage here where they show up and we decide now, I am now presenting a new hoop for them to jump through?
Especially if it's an ad hoc hoop.
Did I say that right?
That's not tied into a bigger plan.
Right. So I just want to be careful that we are, and I think I finally figured out what Kevin was saying is, I don't want an applicant to come here and sit in front of us. And I do want the transportation, I want the sidewalks, I want everything you do, Gail. So trust me, I'm not, Kevin and I aren't against you on here, we want all this. But I want to make sure an applicant walking into our community understands this is what we're looking at, this is the bigger picture. So are we putting a little bit of a cart before a horse here, or are we on good grounds with this? So. And I apologize, Gail, I don't know if it's both.
I think there's 3 situations you face. One is where you have an existing problem and you have the potential for solutions, and you want an applicant who's going to be in that area to address your solutions.
Now, let's hold on to that for 1 second, though. Just, does my applicant come in before me?
Let me give you the overview, though.
Okay, you're going to answer that? Okay, good.
There's going to be the other situation where you have an applicant come in and they're going to create something that's going to have its own unique or not pre-existing set of conditions, and it has to figure out how to work with the impacts or the traffic consequences its project produces. And then you have something in between, which is an opportunistic kind of approach where somebody comes in and they need to think about ways that they can improve their situation, they can improve the surrounding situation, but it's not at the point that you can say, here's what you need to do. You're basically giving them a set of standards and say, look at interconnectivity, look at pedestrian access, and do your traffic study up front and start your design up front with these things in mind, and tell us what you come up with, and show us that you've taken that into consideration. And then you can look and say, okay, you've done what you could, you've addressed these kind of issues, you haven't missed anything.
But don't you have to put that in a framework to start with?
You will have in this process a framework, which will be a set of guidelines adopted by the planning board, which will incorporate and implement the standard traffic study parameters that applicants need to address. And that's only going to be for a certain set of applicants. It's going to be for the ones that have potential to generate more than 100 trips in the peak hour. So those are not your average applicant with a small office building or something like that. That's a project.
Now, you talked about those 3 categories. Give me an example of each.
An example of the first one I talked about, when you have a pre-existing situation.
Existing problem with possible.
Is anybody trying to get a project in the 299 corridor, obviously would need to be in the town, not the village, but the village has that same similar issue with heavy traffic, and the only thing that's missing from that is a specific plan, but I think the traffic study, typically when someone has come in, they've been asked to look at the traffic study and see how their plan would be consistent with the recommendations. And we need to continue to give them something that's easy to operationalize. But also when you have that level of project, you're going to have a traffic engineer, you're going to have consultants who are experienced in doing those sort of things, and they can look and say, this is how it's going to work, and it fits in, these are the levels of service, this is what the traffic study shows, and so on. So that's an example of where there's an existing problem. The example of a unique project is Wildberry. That's a project which will have its own traffic circulation issues to address, and the result from the nature of the project. The example of things in between is most everything that would come in with 100 units or more of traffic generation. I'm trying to remember the last project that did well.
What would distinguish category 2 from 3, George? I understand Wildberry has a unique set of conditions.
And just to continue on Wildberry though for a second, and if this is not fair, just say so. But let's just say, so for example, that was put into, it is not a neg deck, so that's going to be a positive declaration. So it's going to have a whole long form on it. Do we have a mechanism, though, currently in the town that says these are what you need to mitigate for this project to go forward? And you give an excellent example, by the way, which is who goes to the Thruway Authority and says, we would like to get a separate entrance through property that either we currently own or you currently own that would give access to that? And does that exist?
That particular case, we've discussed the applicant making the approach to the Thruway Authority. It's in their interest to do so.
So, but we don't have something currently in the town that an applicant would know that. So if I have an applicant on the other side to the west of the Thruway, they would not know that maybe they should be going to the Thruway Authority to first maybe research there if they should have access.
No, I mean, you can only have by the nature of a unique circumstance or a unique project, you're pretty much going to have a discussion with an applicant and say, these are specific things you need to incorporate or address. Or in their case, they may come in and say, we'd like to do this. Is it possible? And the town can work with them to do that.
And that's not unusual in towns or cities, or it's not. That's not
it's
unusual.
The nature of the beast.
Okay,
I mean,
no, it's okay.
And really, what we're really trying to do here is to address the needs of that intermediate category by providing standards for traffic studies up front so that applicants, when they start thinking about project design, when they start thinking, working with an engineer to set out their design, when they start looking at the nature of the traffic issues they're going to have to deal with, can say, okay, this is how I need to address this. This is the kind of information that will need to be in my traffic study. This is how I need to address interconnectivity for pedestrians, for bicyclists. And they have that agenda, menu of things to incorporate up front. Because in my experience, once you get someone before an applicant, they've been working for 6 months with their engineer, with their design staff. They've come in with something they want to do.
So this can streamline the process as well?
Yes.
If we give them...
You got to give them the right parameters.
We got to
No,
get,
I think-
And Gail, are you confident that we as a town have those parameters yet? Let's just say you want to come to this town and you want to develop a 6-story hotel. Do you feel that we have those parameters yet? Or do you need this town board to then work with our attorneys and planning board to come up with, you come to this community, these are what we're going to be looking at very closely?
I really don't feel that I'm in a position to answer that broad a question.
It's a very broad
But I
question
can
on
tell you
purpose.
this, I do believe very, very sincerely and deeply that passage of the access management law will advance us many steps further to doing exactly that.
And we agree with you, by the way.
Thank you.
We agree with you on that, by the way.
I think that if you put it on the books, that if there's a project, like you said, that wants to improve their parcel or uplift 299, but it's a big enough change that they're going to have to come here. And this is already on the books, okay? So everybody talks about New Paltz, and everybody does want to be here because we are a revenue-generating tourist place to be, okay? So this is what, if this is on the books, they will start the design, like George said. By the time they get here, they've sunk how much money into an engineer? If this is on the books, they're looking at this first, then they got their engineer, then they come in, they talk to us, the planning board, and then they go, okay, I have to think outside of the box. I think that this would be good to have on the books for that reason. I also think that if we did any improvement, and it will take time, it's kind of like when you do a big residential development and you say you have to do the sidewalks and you got a sidewalk to nowhere, but eventually you'll have connectivity.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's like,
Exactly.
it's painful for Gail right now, but it's like the sidewalk connectivity. It's a plan for the future, visual, all kinds of improvements. I like this.
And just, you know, I've learned that lesson years. No, I'm with you though, and I've learned that lesson years ago. With the sidewalks to nowhere.
So I'm glad we had this discussion then.
Okay,
Glad
so
we
let
had
me,
this discussion.
so let me, a couple of things. The planning board, the county planning board gave their opinion, and what the county planning board said, so I want to get your opinion on this, George. It says the Ulster County Planning Board has no issues with and commends the town for the development of a new site development plan, standards, and associated access management guidelines. The Ulster County Planning Board, however, believes the site development process would be more transparent and easier for applicants to navigate the review process if the standards are easily found within the law as opposed to a second document. The guidelines, by placing them within the law, need not become standards, but can continue as guidelines simply by stating, quote, "Planning board will consider the following guidelines in its review," or something similar to that effect. So I just want to know what...
Well, the law does state that, and it states the planning board can adopt regulations, and that's provided for in your town code. In my opinion, it's a more flexible process because the planning board can adopt these after review referral to you and public hearing on the proposed regulation. Doesn't require going through the general code process, amending the statute. And it gives a level of flexibility to the process. So every time we change a number, we change a designation, we don't have to go through the local law process.
And my only question for you, George, is I always hesitate when you go to a planning board and you say things like, "will consider." So then you end up in the arena of will consider. You know where I'm going with this?
I don't like you to say the arena of.
I know, because
way too open.
and that's why, and it's on purpose. So we will consider solar electric charging stations. Will consider access management plans. Will consider
No, see,
trees.
that's why you need something on the books.
No, but I'm getting, here's where I get, and your opinion and Kevin's opinion. Kevin knows where I'm going. That's why I have an attorney next to me. So it's the will consider. I get fearful because also, and I think Gail is in this arena too, which is we're trying to make it easier, or not, either one. We're trying to make it easier for applicants to understand the rules to come in and make application, not make it more difficult. So the phrase will consider. So I come in as an applicant, what do I need to consider? Do I need to consider and put in my conceptual plan or my plan solar electrical charging car stations? Do I need to consider connectivity? Do I need to consider dog walks? Where does the
flavor of the day?
Not even, and even not that, but the will consider. I just want to be, I almost want to go and say, this is part of your application, or is that going too far? To your point, is every applicant unique?
I think, I've once heard that someone said, everybody's the same in some respects, most people are similar in some respects, and everyone is unique in some respects.
That's a very good statement.
I'm still trying to figure, I heard Harry Stack Sullivan, a psychologist, but I can't.
That's Supreme Court Justice you were quoting there?
No, this was a psychologist, but I can't pin it down, so I can't say it was him, but the saying is still true. Every applicant that comes into the planning board has a set of things they must do, they must provide. Those things are specified in the code. There are some things they can request waivers from, there are some things they can seek to address in various and different ways. Depends on their project, depends on what they attempt to accomplish. And then the planning board has the obligation to review those, to consider the same factors and say whether or not it has been adequately addressed and addressed by the standards set forth in the zoning law. So there's considerations that take place on both sides. I completely agree. We need to make that as transparent and as understandable as possible. So when someone does come in, to the extent they have an application for a shed, they know what they need to do, present to the planning board to get the shed approval. They know what the standards are. And the planning board also needs to know how to apply those standards to that particular thing. When someone comes in for a 6-story hotel with or without a water slide in it, the planning board has to know, and the applicant has to know how to present that. But I think the board also recognizes that someone coming in for a shed isn't going to retain an engineer to site it, they aren't going to have a topographical study that shows the shed is appropriately situated. All they really need to know is that shed 10 feet away or not from the property boundary? Sometimes that's a challenge, but that's pretty much that's the standard that's going to be applied to that particular shed. So it is going to depend. The planning board and the applicant need some flexibility in the process. And the code needs to tell them what the respective roles are.
I think and it's real quick, Susan, I promise, but I think, and I do want to hear many opinions on it, I think what my fear is here, and this just comes from sitting as a liaison to the planning board and the ZBA for many years, is the difficulty is an applicant comes before our planning board, and I don't know if they know exactly what the rules are. And so the shed example is a very good example and a viable example, but we're down to a very small amount of developable commercial properties in our community. We're actually down to a very small amount of developable home sites in our community. They're all becoming very challenging. They're taking long processes, which some of them for great reason, too, because they're very fragile lands. Our commercial properties, though, along our what we consider, or I apologize, I consider our commercial corridor, does an applicant know they can come in, make an application, they have thoroughly read our laws, and then all of a sudden they're saying, well, here is a law I have where I may consider, and we now want to enact that may consider, and that can have a large impact. I will use an example of the law on solar charging stations we passed. They can say, now we would like to consider that. That actually can have a very large impact on an applicant who is someone who has very limited parking or access to parking spaces. If I'm going to say to them, I'm now, for you to have 4 electrical charging stations is going to take up about 8 or 10 or 12 traditional parking spaces, I may now have moved that applicant into a whole different arena. Or out of that arena. I'm using the word arena again, which I like. So what I'm looking here is, are we putting ourselves in a position again where we're saying, I've made a hoop, can't decide whether I want you to jump through it or not, but be prepared, I may ask you to jump through that hoop. And I don't want to be there. I'm trying to encourage good, smart development in this community at a pace that is respectful to both the applicant and the community, and we can decide in a reasonable time frame this applicant belongs in this community or not, and not continuing to ask them to pay legal, engineering, application fees while we drag them through these different hoops. I'm trying to get down to a simple form here. And if we do this, are we adding something that's an unknown to an applicant?
No, you're doing the opposite. You're setting out guidelines and saying, if you come here and you have
and you focus on these things, we're going to welcome you.
We will be able to review and decide your application.
And you feel, and if you were representing an applicant, you would feel good with something like this then?
I would feel much better than coming in and then having to go through a scoping session and have that process then generate the traffic studies and things and standards that I would have to address on that. I mean, there are unique cases, and those are the cases that may, especially in the scoping session, require something that's tailored to that particular case.
And that's
But
where
generally,
that's where I think the consideration, the term consideration gives the latitude that both parts of the equation are going to need to have in certain kinds of situations. The the incentive provision here, by the way, was something that evolved over time. And in fact, one of your former colleagues initially, when this all came up, was opposed to this whole idea, but once understood the kind of thing that George has now explained, was very supportive of. And I just want to say 2 other things. That I believe that if you have got in your code that these are the things that are going to be considered, that an applicant in preparing to approach you is going to be prepared to demonstrate that the applicant has considered these things, and if there's certain aspects that aren't feasible, why they aren't, but that they have given thought to it in the first place. And I'd also have to say that relative to this is it's not so long ago the Transportation Implementation Committee was being encouraged to sort of change its mind about how we wanted to approach this, and rather than approach it as a law, let's do it as a guideline that the planning board would use and so forth. And the fact that we're here tonight is that we said, no, it's too important to simply have as a guideline. And so we'll have to go through the aggravations and frustrations of getting a law changed in order to pursue that goal.
No, I'm good.
Just to go to what I think may be one of your concerns, the last provision in the guidelines is provision for waiver, and it sets forth standards and a process for the planning board to follow in determining whether a waiver is appropriate.
Okay.
Okay, so not to try to wrap up conversation, but because we do have a very serious conversation tonight about litigation, I don't want to do that at 11 o'clock at night, so we have to start moving this along.
No, Gail, thank you, and we really appreciate all the work you've put into this.
No, she's been putting in a lot of work, a lot of work. So now the only thing is, no, well, let me, so there was a request, because we do have a very big project that's coming, that's in front of the planning board. They had wanted their traffic consultant to look at the access management plan, not from a perspective of asking for it to be changed or whatever, just for the possibility of giving in, how do I phrase, to give input, that we might have overlooked or whatever. I don't know if you want to explain, but we were asked to hold the public hearing open at least because the traffic engineer is away on vacation. The applicant wants the traffic engineer to look at it, and George thought it wasn't a bad idea, so I'll let you just speak for a second, and then we'll figure out what to do.
That's about all I can say. I don't think it's a bad idea to get comment from somebody who does this, does professional traffic engineering, and see if there are issues or concerns that we have missed or not addressed, and if they do have issues that are developer issues, see whether those need to be accommodated or not.
Sounds fine.
But I think the town standpoint is what's in the town's interest.
More knowledge is better than less.
So if we're going to do that, I know Gail is very anxious to see this passed, but I can promise you we'll do it next month. But it will get done.
You can promise.
Well, I can, but look, we got here.
I know you promised to try.
Yes,
Right.
you're here, and we did this and whatever. So now, really, pretty much all your questions were asked and answered. So it's not that problem. It's just if there's something glaring that we haven't thought of, and having an expert traffic person look at it, it's one more eyes.
And if there is something we do want to address, leaving the hearing open until next month allows us that opportunity.
Okay,
And
so
Gail, we are going to want your committee to continue to look at projects, 'cause we have a couple of big ones ahead of us, and we're going to want your, trust me, we're going to want your input on them.
Okay, so can I have so then if everybody's in agreement, we'll just hold the hearing open till, what's the third Thursday? The 17th? Okay. I'll be there for this meeting, I won't be there for the next one. I found out my dates. Okay, so we're going to hold the public hearing open until July 17th.
Okay.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
Thank you, Gail.
So moved.
Okay.
Thank you, Gail.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried, great. Okay, thanks, Gail, so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's just get through a couple of things real quick, and then we can do what we have to do on a serious subject. Okay, so we have the Albanesta escrow. Basically, all we have to do on that one is we already had established giving the money back and then holding 10% of the performance bond for a year. But Al Wagner sent us a letter based on him looking at the trees and the plantings, and so he actually asked, he's recommending, and Stacy said, attached please find correspondence from Al Wagner, landscape consultant for the town, based upon Mr. Wagner's inspection of the planting of the street trees within the Black Creek Crossing Development, AKA Evergreen Lane, he's recommending that the town retain the performance funds currently held for a period of 2 years in lieu of 1 year, requirement is set by the planning board pursuant to section 121-16 of the subdivision regulations. This recommendation is to ensure that should the trees not survive and the developer fails to replace them, the town will have the funds to do so. So that was a request from Al Wagner. Stacy sent it forward to us, asking for us to support that request.
Fine with it.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion so carried. And you got that? Do you need, you're okay? Okay, great. Okay, the MOU DMV hearing room, we do this every single year.
Is this really literally to use the parking lot?
No, this is, they use a room in
the courthouse.
They use a room in the courthouse
They
to do
actually use it in
hearings.
the courthouse. We do it every year.
All right, but it says.
DWI hearings.
What Veterans Drive?
It should be.
No, it says in the New Paltz Town
It
Court.
should be the town
Located at
court.
23 Plattekill Avenue.
Really?
Do you have a different copy? 'Cause it did
Is that
say,
just the recital up top between the town and them?
it
Well, I
should say
think,
Plattekill Avenue
Oh.
Courthouse, unless you have.
You know what? Mine told anyway. It says
Yeah, Tony Hookinson, I know. I have this one that says Tony too, so it's, I have to get one like this.
There's one with,
It's gonna be this one, and they were already using it. It's already, June. They've been using it since the,
every year we sign an
we
MOU
probably
with
should've-
them, and
probably should've done it at the
they
beginning of
rent
the
it
year.
from us, June. Or they give us a stipend for
they
it.
give us a stipend to use it. We just want to get the contract signed.
I
Same
know.
So
contract.
moved.
I know.
Second.
We'll just fix
For the
it.
stipend, I just
Yeah.
want
So
to-
moved.
Second, any more conversation?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. It's just, we have to just correct the contract to reflect it, because you're right, I saw the same thing. Okay, because we really, okay, parades, events, Kevin?
Yes, you'd like me to report?
Yeah, not really, but you have to.
Okay, so parades,
Who it is?
the format is,
What are you doing?
See, you know why? 'Cause we were
Welcome back from
messing you.
vacation.
so on parades,
On parades. I love a parade.
I circulated to Sally at the Village a 20th revision on the parade application
all?
form. I've spent a lot of time on this recently, believe me.
50th?
You talk to my secretaries in my office, driving them crazy. It's one page. It's
Thank
a
you.
front and a back.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
And I sent it to Sally. She's okay with it. She had, she recommended one change, which I made. So I will circulate that and the event application, one page, front and
you.
back, to all of you for us to approve or amend or revise next time.
Because we're getting parade requests,
Yeah,
so.
but you can use this form.
Okay, so basically, I mean, we might end up having to have a special meeting for a developers agreement for the Hospitality Inn, so maybe we could put that on the agenda for whenever we do that,
It'll be
so.
emailed to Carol tomorrow, and she'll circulate,
Okay.
you can look at it.
Terrific, okay, good. Okay, so then the New Paltz School District, so what the deal is, it is, the contract is right. We pay the mileage fee to the school district, and we end up approving via voucher. We pay the bus drivers via voucher $26 an hour. So what I'd like to do, yeah.
Which is what they get.
Their rate.
It covers
Yeah.
their rate.
Yeah,
Now, but we
right.
didn't used to pay
Yeah, no, we do.
mileage.
I never
No, we always did
remembered
it in
that.
last year's contracts. We went back and looked. So we pay the mileage for the use of the bus, and then mileage? It was in the contract, it was $2.61 a mile?
No, but how much did we actually pay them?
Oh, it didn't exceed
Oh.
$10,000 last
Whatever was-
year.
yeah.
I know that. I know it didn't exceed 10 grand.
It's
That's what
260 mile.
We budget 10,000, it did not exceed.
It's to take the kids back and forth from the summer rec program to the...
261?
It's 260, yeah, that's the same. And so what I would need is a motion to
Sign the contract.
authorize the supervisor to sign the school bus
So moved.
contract. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then the school bus drivers, Vivian Figueroa, Angela Shurko, and Robert Roush. We have all of their driver's license. They came in and gave us all their driver's license, and at the rate of $26 per hour. So would somebody like to move that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Do you need the names?
So, yeah,
Do you need these names?
you keep those.
Those are the names of the people we just, you're welcome.
And those we should probably file.
Yeah, but I have
Actually,
to,
you
I think
know,
there's one more
Lynn-
person coming in
You know
tomorrow.
what, Lynn should probably
Yeah,
get
I'll
those.
get that.
She needs the
Yeah.
DMV, it also
Right.
needs to go to the insurance company.
So,
If
okay.
we're paying.
So did we vote on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all done.
All
We're
passed.
Did we voted,
Say the pledge.
I know we voted on the, I know we
No, we
voted on the,
passed.
on the contract. Did we vote on the drivers?
Yes, we did.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Do you have that?
Yes.
The only thing I missed with the home again for the tape is who seconded that?
I believe I
Dan.
seconded it.
Thank you.
No
Okay,
problem.
and we didn't vote, so all in favor?
We all
So
said
we
aye.
already voted.
No, she doesn't have it, so can you do it again?
Aye.
Motion so carried, thank you.
Kevin would like you to say the pledge again.
Okay, guys, the RRA proposal, well, I did invite, the day after we talked about the RRA municipal solid waste proposal and how they want to raise the rates for, to the towns because the $2.4 million that they got in profit from flow control isn't enough, and they think that we have to carry our own as opposed to whatever. So we invited our two legislators. I thought they were going to come. They're not here. I do know that Carl Chipman who chairs our town supervisor association, did go to the RA meeting on Monday night to talk to the board about not trying to force this down everybody's throat so quickly. He's supposed to report back to us, and I talked to him about at least a subcommittee or something taking this on seriously and told him that at least our town has a lot of problems with being asked to raise our municipal rate.
Maybe what you want to do at your supervisors meeting is to populate the committee from, like a member from each town.
Well, at the supervisor, the supervisors from all the towns come and meet once a month.
that. But if you're going to populate a committee, it should be a collective group, not just the town.
Oh, no, when I talked to Chris about putting together I told him that I had had a conversation with Rich Gerantine, who's the head of Ways and Means at the legislature, and Rich didn't believe in flow control in the first place, and Rich also doesn't believe that the RA should be doing recyclables, and the town should continue to, should do the recyclables. And so I asked Carl Chipman if he's putting together a committee to try to even get Rich Gerantine from Ways and Means and from the legislature, because we're going to need the help of the legislature, but we have to get a group together to start working on this, because otherwise we're going to turn around and our rates are going to get raised, and that's going to be the end of it.
It should be a county-wide group.
It should be a county-wide group, absolutely, because it's a county legislature that basically, so it has to be. So hopefully we'll move this forward, because like I said to Carl, we got to act, because the RA is going to put together their budget, the legislature is going to adopt it, or their board, or whatever, and we're going to get caught holding the bag, the garbage bag, and it's not right. So anyway, that's that, but I thought our legislators would be here, but unfortunately they're not.
And I did hear, just so you know, I did hear from Ken Wishnick, and he did say he apologized. He actually is up in Saugerties and is unable to make it.
Okay.
So I know.
Invite them to a special meeting we have on.
Okay, now the developers agreement, which is on this, we're putting this on hold because it wasn't ready. This has to do with the Hospitality Inn, so they can get a demolition permit and get started on working on their project, but we'll probably have a special meeting for that as soon as George, Joe, and Wayne, Wayne, Joe, and George have been working and talking and whatever, but as soon as the developers agreement is ready, we'll get the bond, we'll give them their demolition permit, and work can begin.
Break ground this year.
So, the only thing left before us, asking for a motion to go into executive session. Do you want to do this? Well, there was just 1 minute. There was one package of minutes. Do you want to do that, or?
June 19th.
Yeah.
The introductory resolution.
Oh, I forgot you wanted us to do that. That's right. Okay, why don't we just do, can anybody have a problem with the minutes real quick? Which is from last meeting.
June 19th, 2014.
I have a...
I'll move it.
Second.
Any problems, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. We'll do that too, but let's just do this budget modification real quick. This was on the parkland funds. Remember, I don't remember why Jean...
The request that you rescind, we did rescind.
We rescinded, but then there was $9,972.25
Yes.
that was sort of hanging out there. So Arlene wants us to just move, a motion to move the $9,972.25 from the A fund balance back to Parkland Reserve.
Okay, but it doesn't say that.
Yes, it does. She says, we request appropriating the remaining from capital improvement and complete... Yes, but what I'm doing is right now, we're just moving it back to Parkland. Then with Chris, we'll figure out what we need for the pool, what we need still for the sports park. We have $44,000 left in the Parkland fund. We'll hopefully be getting more money, but Chris has to tell us, we have a lot of projects between the pool and the Field of Dreams, so Chris will tell us what we need to do before we appropriate it back out. But right now, Arlene just wants to move it in to the Parkland where it belongs, then we'll move it out when we spend it. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion so carried. Thank you,
Okay,
because I'd really like to get this.
Can I have that?
Yes, you
You
can.
can have the folder.
So, is there
I have a blank folder now. Okay, so what do you want us to do, George?
There's an introductory resolution for the...
Can you use the
Do you want me to
microphone?
read it? Do you want me to read the resolution?
Should you?
Go ahead.
Please.
I have my glasses on. Be it resolved that an introductory local law entitled Registration and Maintenance of Vacant and Rental 1- and 2-Family Residential Properties be, and it hereby is introduced by
Jean
Gallucci, before the Town Board of the Town of New Paltz in the County of Ulster and the State of New York. And be it further resolved that copies of the aforesaid proposed local law be laid upon the desk of each member of the board. And be it further resolved that the board hold a public hearing on said proposed local law at the Town Hall, 1 Veterans Drive, New Paltz, New York, at 7:15 p.m. on July 17th, 2014, and be it further resolved that the clerk publish or cause to be published a public notice in the official newspaper of the Town of New Paltz of said public hearing at least 5 days prior thereto. On a motion by Jean Gallucci, seconded by Susan Zimmett, The resolution was adopted on a vote of...
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried.
Which
Thank
desk
you.
was it put on, George?
Okay,
Yes.
so I
No, we had another public hearing set.
we
We set that public
give
hearing.
the whole thing.
That was public hearing we set.
Okay, good.
And this is for the law to deal with all these vacant properties that are in New Paltz. What? Owner-occupied single-family houses that are vacant, causing a lot of havoc all over New Paltz, and we're trying the best we can to try to. So now what we need to do is, I'd like to ask for a motion to go into executive session for the purposes, if everybody knows, we are being sued by Wilmer Wright. The planning board is being sued by Wilmer Wright.
Excuse me, there's more than Wilmer, right?
We're being sued by who?
By Wilmer Wright.
And?
Oh, Wilmer Wright, the foundation.
I'm sorry,
and
the who?
The SUNY Foundation.
The State University of New York Foundation. Who else?
And Michael and Jean Moriello. So we need to go to discuss the lawsuit and whatever actions. We need to discuss the Teamsters contract and what's transpired with the Teamsters contract. And
That's it.
I think that's it.
Second, or so moved.
Was a
second.
third thing? I can't remember what.
I have one in clarification.
Okay.
The entity that's suing is Gospel LLC,
Okay,
which is a whole.
can you use a? I think it's on. Just talk into it.
The entity that is suing the planning board is Goshawk LLC, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the SUNY Foundation.
Well, that was the subsidiary that was set up for them to be able to purchase the land, right?
Correct.
But George, isn't that the foundation?
It's a wholly owned subsidiary. That's what the pleading says.
But isn't that the foundation, though?
This is the same foundation that holds a golf tournament and fundraisers at Mohonk Mountain House, and which his whole community pays tax-deductible contributions to. That foundation?
Okay.
Debbie, that foundation,
So,
Kevin?
all in favor? Motion is so carried. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. I have these things. Do you need them, or you want me to give them to you? I was going to put them in wrong.
Do you want, do we need
This is
him
the
or?
financial.
Okay.
I don't think
This is the
we're not going to take action.
Chris, are we inviting you into
For the Teamsters portion, sure.
Chris, are we inviting you into the beginning of this?
Yeah, but can you, I don't want to do anything.
Well, I don't want to keep